Hey guys and girls, Board now back with you. On this video I will be talking about the second episode of Pam and Tommy. It's episode 2, it's called I Love You Tommy. So full spoilers from the start of this review. Again, not much to spoil because this is a backstory of how Pam and Tommy first met and fell in love, supposedly, and how the whole affair sort of begins. So the episode, we get a little bit more of like them watching the porn tape, that being the Offerman porn producer and the Seth Rogen character, but then we flash back to 1995 when they first met, the night they first met, which is at a club. And then we sort of work our way through to them randomly getting married, the whole affair, and then moving into his love pad together and the whole thing. And the episode ends with the first time they actually film themselves having sex, which is Pamela's idea. And that scene is quite something to behold. I'll talk about it in a minute. But so not too much to spoil. Again, it's more groundworks. But once again, it's very stylish, very entertaining. There's some great use of music. And we obviously see more of Lily James as Pam Anderson in this episode. And she's really a natural, I think. I think she brings a lot of charm and sort of wide-eyed innocence, but also naivety to the role. And that's a big theme. But I think one of the things the episode captures is just how chaotic and out of control the whole thing is, and just how I think it's almost similar to like the sort of relationships you see where you can just, from the outside looking in, and when you're someone else and someone close, because we see Pam's friends like concerned about one friend in particular. So I think it's that whole thing of, you can see that it's going to be a disaster, but trying to convince them that it's going to be a disaster is a whole thing. And it's sort of scary watching in and them not sort of seeing. Obviously, I mean, Tommy appears to like really dig and love all this thing. But there's a running gag at the start when they're in the club where Pam apparently, has a thing for bad boys, and she said, from now on, no more bad boys. It's nice guys all the way from me. And her friends are like celebrating and drinking to it. And then obviously we all know where it's going because she's once again going to go for a bad boy. And it's a whole thing in the club where she buys everyone in the club a drink, and that's where Tommy first locks eyes on her and sort of ditches the girl he's with and goes over. And I think one of the things the episode shows is just how sort of dangerous he is for her because of the way he pursues her, because she leaves the club and she says she kind of digs him because she finds him funny, but she promises her friend that she's not going to date him. And as she's leaving the club and he's sort of like pursuing her, she agrees to give him her number. And then he proceeds to sort of stalk her over the phone, rings her several times, even though she doesn't reply. And then he stalks her to Mexico when she's got a whole thing, a convention type thing in Mexico where she's meeting some fans, like really taken aback by how like famous she is. Like when they come back off holiday and from being married, he's just like really put out by all the press and stuff, whereas she just takes it in her stride because she's sort of used to it. Again, some good humour of it. I mean, the scene when he's talking to his CGI penis when they first get together and the night of it and he's in love or says he's in love, and that's a very funny scene because the penis is saying, no, we've got to ride this way, we can get so much pussy, you can have people like Jen McCarthy, Denise Richards, and he's like in this bubble where, no, Pam's the girl for me, she knows how to have fun, she's the one, all this sort of stuff. So I did not expect that. Obviously, he's high, and that's part of the reason for it. But man, but yeah, again, it's this trip of an episode. Some great use of music. Because at one point, a more bizarre use of music is like Len "Steal My Sunshine," which is a great song, but it's sort of out of the era because that's more like 2005. That song. Or was it later 90s? It was either it might have been late 90s, early 2000s, so it doesn't quite fit the period, but it works well enough as seen. But the sort of telling bit of music is the hurdy-gurdy, which they use for the first night they sort of like get together. And this obviously that's a really eerie bit of music, and I think in this case they're using it as a more surreal type thing of this thing which just feels so wrong. It's like these two people don't fit together, and this is never gonna work out, because one thing they sort of highlight in this episode is that she is, despite her stardom and everything and how glamorous her character on Baywatch is how she is actually from this really modest working class town in Canada, and how she is a very laid back, down to earth sort of girl. And I think there is something going on with class here, because obviously he's very working class as well, very sort of simple, sometimes in a very gross sort of way. And I think the grossness of him is something that's obviously forefront to this. But yeah, I think it's very effective in showing that this relationship is a car crash from the start, and it's probably only going to be a matter of time before things start going off the tracks and stuff. So I think that's probably the use of why they use the hurdy-gurdy, which otherwise seems a weird choice for that scene. But it's a good episode. It's a fun episode once again. Some good comedy. Obviously, there's certain moments that are quite, have a bit more to say. I think there are a couple like small moments of humanity, like moments where you see that actually there is something like a bit more human going on here, because for the most part it's just fluff, and it's doing its job in showing how wrong this whole thing is, but it's sort of entertaining to watch. But there's a scene on the plane which is like after they've got married and they're flying home, and they actually talk for the first time properly as human beings, because they've been getting high and stuff, and he just asks her, what's your favourite movie? And she says Pretty Woman, and starts listing like rom-coms like Sleepless in Seattle, and he then starts saying horror movies for his favourite, like Nightmare and Child's Play, and they go for a gag with that. I almost wish that they'd gone in reverse, and that she was the one into the horror movies. But I think what they were trying to get across is that she's quite a simple, down to earth type girl who doesn't try to be too cool or sort of artsy. So fair enough. I think that's what they were going for. But it sort of leads to like the brilliant end scene, which is again something you never thought you would see in this, is them watching The King and I, and she says it's one of my favourite movies again. And at first he's like all sniffy about it. It's like, what the fuck is this? And he's making sarky sort of comments about it. But, it gets to the famous scene, getting to know you, that scene, and she starts saying the lines to it and starts singing the song. And it's sort of on the nose, but it works so well because literally they are getting to know each other. So, and that's what the use of music should do. It's like a soundtrack to that particular situation. So they start singing along and start, like, he's been a bit goofy as always, but it actually fits so well, that song, and the use of it in that scene. A bit sweet scene, but it's also flipping that in the next instance, because it's that scene where she gets the idea of actually filming them sort of having sex, and then it's the backdrop to that sort of sweet, playful scene. So good stuff, really good end scene, fun episode again. It's the sort of episode where it's an episode of, you can do this once, but next time we want to get back to the whole stuff with the sex tape. But it sets that stuff up, obviously. But great use of music. Again, I think this is why Craig Gillespie is a great director for this, because I think he understands how to tell the story using music and putting it all together with the images. I think he's a very stylistic type director. Wouldn't surprise me actually if he came from a pop video background before getting into movies, but that's his strong point, definitely. So that's overall in the comments below. What do you think about the performances so far? And I'll be back with more Pam and Tommy soon. See you later, guys. Goodbye.